Welcome to Unit 2. We're going to continue on with our drone improvisation exercises. We're going to stay in C. Later on we will go to some different keys, but for now we're staying in C. And the first point here is really important, which is to use a variety of hand positions. I see this so much as a problem for students as they're improvising, that they essentially stay in the same place on the piano, and they do what I call the crab. I don't know if I mentioned this in the text, but the crab kind of looks like this. Like maybe moving up and down a little bit, but essentially staying in this very close hand position. And you'll notice that the improvisation sounds very boring. It sounds very mumbly. It's a lot of steps and small intervals. So what can you do to counteract that? The first thing is that you can practice crossing under and crossing over as you play, as you improvise, just as you do with your scales. And I would really practice these devices one at a time. So practice crossing under a ton, and it's going to send you upwards if you're doing it right when you're crossing under. And remember a couple things about scales. First of all, you usually cross under after finger 3 or 4, not after finger 2. Because look, if you cross under after finger 2, you're just going to end up going 1, 2, 1, 2 all the time, which it's too much crossing under. And then remember, you don't always have to cross under to the very next key. You've probably played arpeggios, where you're crossing under a few keys ahead. Same thing crossing over. All those same things apply. Don't cross over with your 2, because then you're going to just end up walking down 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1. Cross on over with your 4 or your 3. And you don't always have to cross over to the very next note. The other thing you can do is expand and contract. I call this somewhere over the rainbow move. So from a regular kind of 5-finger position, we'd expand out to the octave, and then we contract here. Right? We could make it up and down the piano, expanding and contracting. Just like a snake moves, I guess. Pretty interesting. And this is necessary to get some bigger intervals, right? If you stay in this position with one finger on each key, the biggest interval you're ever going to get is a fifth. So it's really important to expand your hand so that you can get a greater variety of intervals. Another way to get a greater variety of intervals involves staying in arpeggio position, in which I have my thumb and pinky an octave apart, and then I have fingers 1, 2, 3, 4 on consecutive thirds. I believe a lot of jazz pianists keep their hand in arpeggio position for a lot of the time as they're improvising. So I want you to focus on these hand positions for a 1 or 2 minute improvisation every day. The second thing I want you to do is kind of a different level of listening to yourself. This is kind of listening to yourself and then responding to yourself. Call and response format. And there's not necessarily a right way or a wrong way to do call and response. But essentially you want to listen to your phrase, treat it as a question, and then ask yourself what would be an appropriate answer. So, oftentimes there's kind of a symmetry, meaning that rhythmically maybe the phrases are very similar, or maybe even there's a symmetry in that like one goes up and the other goes down. That's pretty common. But I'm not really here to tell you what the right or wrong way to do call and response is. I actually just want you to listen to your first phrase and then think what would come next. Because that's often what we're actually doing as we improvise. So enjoy your drone improvisation. And as you're doing it, take some time, focus on these 2 things, and then don't forget about those first 3 points of focus. Playing in phrases with clear beginnings and endings, really listening to yourself, and then asking yourself about what kind of rhythms you're going to use. Jazz learning works best when it's cumulative. Of course, if you work on these things in Unit 2 and then completely forget the things in Unit 1, it doesn't help us all that much. So go back and maybe you want to keep practicing those things from Unit 1 until they're really deeply ingrained. All right, see you soon.